Hello, everyone. Hope you are having a terrific Testimony Tuesday. And I am here briefly to share with you five, because I added one, impromptu, important lessons I learned from reading the short story Leaf by Niggle by J.R.R. Tolkien. You ready? You got your pen, your paper? Here we go. All right. Insight/lesson number 1. There is always a struggle with creative people who are kind-hearted. And that struggle is often how to say no, how to have good boundaries, how to stay focused, and how to not take on so much of what other people are going through that you lose sight of managing the time when it comes to that thing that is just driving you throughout your life as a creative person. Kind-hearted people, your struggle is not new. It has been going on since the beginning of time, as we'll see in the story of a little man named Niggle. Please pick up this story and check it out. You'll find that he was kind-hearted and he struggled, and we'll see how that struggle impacted him. And we could probably find some encouragement for those of us who are kind-hearted on how to stay focused, but at the same time use the kind heart that God gave us, for his glory, but also for the benefit of others in a way that is not hurtful, harmful, and detrimental to ourselves. All right. The second insight or lesson that I learned from reading Leaf by Niggle is don't allow your fears or the fears of others to get you off course. Trust your discernment. So you'll find in Leaf by Niggle, he had a dilemma. Someone came to him very afraid of a particular thing, but he had an inkling that the thing that person was afraid of, they didn't need to be. But guess what? He didn't trust his inkling, and he joined this person in trying to alleviate this thing that this person was afraid of, and it didn't even exist. Unfortunately, in his trying to alleviate that thing from that person that didn't even exist, he ended up acquiring that thing for himself, and it was, unfortunately, to his demise. But check the book out. Don't let other people's fears knock you off course. Don't let your own fears, but definitely don't pick up and throw across your shoulder and carry on your back the fears of others. It's hard to do, especially when, they are legitimate fears or concerns of people who love you and only want the best for you. You can't allow fears, especially when you have some discernment and inkling that, you know what? I'm going to be all right. This is going to work out. If I just keep on trucking, this thing is going to be all right. Don't allow other people's fears to knock you off course like Niggle did. Thirdly, sometimes the people you help the most, who end up being your greatest distraction, don't even see you or what you are doing the way you must see your vision and treat it as such. All right, sometimes the people who are the biggest distraction, they don't intend to be, but they tend to be your biggest distraction. Oftentimes, they're people who they don't mean no harm, but the only way they see you is for whatever it is that you do that makes their life easier. Even if it knocks you off of whatever that thing is that God put inside of you. Again, sometimes folk don't mean no harm, but they don't even see the vision that God gave you. And that's okay. That doesn't make them bad, but it does make it your responsibility to see the vision that God gave you with enough value and enough priority to see it through. All right, we're moving along. Fourth lesson that I learned from reading Leaf by Niggle is only the true essence of what you produce will have a long-term effect. But eventually, it'll all be forgotten. Only what's done for Christ will last. So we got this thing here that we have to seek God about and be intentional about walking out when it comes to how we prioritize our time. Um, Anything that we do for God and for the kingdom is going to be more important at the end of the day than anything else, because it is the only thing that is going to last. But if we see the things that God has given us a true gift and a true passion and purpose for as a part of the grand scheme of what He's doing in the earth, for eternity's sake, we will take more seriously the way we spend our time and how much we prioritize what it is that we're supposed to be doing, in the balance of everyday things that happen in life. Your neighbor knocks on the door and needs a cup of sugar. You know what I'm saying? And you are sitting at the table recording your new album on your new hardware or your new software. And do you stop? You might forget this line that's in your head. But the sugar is there. The neighbor's there. Do you stop, give the neighbor the sugar, and continue recording? Or what do? You get to decide what to do. But know that if the heart that God gave you and the resources that God gave you can be of benefit to someone else, definitely pray on that thing and start to know, when is it actually good for me to invest myself and my time, especially if you have to put down what is in your hands that God has given you to do. All right, so that's one of the things. Knowing that at the end of the day, it's all going to be forgotten. Even if you remember it for 500 years after the fact, at some point, no one's going to know who you are and no one will care. But God will know who you are, and your place in eternity is definitely sure. Now, it's going to be on you when it comes to how that eternity part is going to go. You get to decide and make those decisions about who you're going to serve. That's going to be between you and the Lord. We're not necessarily even going to get into that on this particular post, even though I want you to make your calling and your election sure and know where you will spend eternity. But just understand, the things that you create, the things that God places in your hands and your heart to do, those things are important. They are, and you should treat them as such. But treat them as such with the humility of knowing that one day it will all be forgotten if we're just going by what we can tangibly acquire and tangibly produce in this life. But if we are connecting those things to what benefit they will have in all eternity, then we'll understand how they matter. And then lastly, the fifth thing is creative friends are very important. People who get it. If you're a writer, you need a couple friends that are writers, or at least one. If you're a singer, you need a couple friends that are singers, at least one. If you're a painter, you're going to have to get around some painters, because when you get to a certain space, that's the only way you're going to grow. That's the only way you're going to advance. Even if it is through the internet, you need community to grow. And even if that community is just one person, I don't care if it's a pen pal. I don't care if you got to write them a letter and send it to Timbuktu and wait 6 months for them to write you back. You need somebody in this life. And my prayer is that God will connect you with that person if you are not already connected with that person. It's important. Fun fact, before my time runs out, J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were buddies. I think there was a third guy, but his name doesn't come to me right now. But Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were friends. And I just got a kick out of knowing that, just from reading a little of Tolkien and a whole lot of C.S. Lewis. They encouraged one another to continue and not throw out what has now become their greatest works. Tolkien almost didn't write The Hobbit, didn't want to continue with The Hobbit because it took so long and he was so frustrated. And there were many times where he too encouraged C.S. Lewis. So if you're a creative, you need creative friends. All right, I hope you're encouraged by this. Have an amazing Tuesday.